Hey there, it's Lenny McGill with the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop here in the Nashville studios today. And how are you? We're going to go ahead and talk today about the extended slide stop. And it's a very important item. The Glock factory gun comes with a standard slide stop. So here's a Gen 3 Glock 17. I'm going to go ahead and just drop the magazine. And I'm going to double check inside there to make sure it's empty. And it is empty. And I recommend you do that every time you touch a gun to make sure you know the status of the gun. Now that the magazine is out and I've checked the chamber, I'm going to pull this trigger and keep it pointing in a safe direction. And now we can actually play with this thing a little bit. So if you look over here, this is the slide stop, not to be confused with the slide lock. So the slide stop is the slide release or slide catch. It catches the slide on the last round and holds it back. The slide lock is the takedown lever. So you've probably seen on my videos, sometimes I interchange those words because it's very easy. Slide stop, slide lock, slide lock, slide stop, la, 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 la. Okay, crazy, right? But the slide stop is designed to lock the slide back on the last round. And I'll show you how it does that when we open this thing up and get into it. To manipulate it, you basically slide your thumb right down onto it, and you just slide it down, and the slide goes forward. Some people have trouble doing that because it's a small little button. So we sell what we call an extended slide stop. And we've got 4 or 5 different varieties of them, which I'll show you here after we do the installation process. So you can kind of compare which one you like the best. The idea is that the slide stop really has several functions. One, of course, it locks it back on the last round. I got that, and you're able to release the slide like that. But another function is to be able to depress it or to engage it so that you can lock it back when you're passing a gun around. So the proper technology or proper way to do this, the proper procedure, is to lock it back, and now everybody who can see it from afar knows that it's basically empty and it's safe. So I feel that the slide stop has really 2 functions. First, of course, it does allow you to release the slide forward, right? We got that. But I think the main thing for me too is also being able to engage it and do so and do it quickly without having to adjust your grip and or pointing the gun in different directions. So the extended versions make manipulation a lot easier, and we sell a ton of them. It's a low-cost part, to be honest, compared to the rest of the parts we sell, but it really makes a big difference in your ability to operate the gun. That's really important, the word operate. You're able to operate the controls, and extended controls make it easier. Just like the extended slide lock that we sell makes it easier to pull down and take the gun apart, the extended slide stop makes it easier to engage and to let the slide go forward. The procedure for installation is basically the same on most Glocks. They're different with the Gen 5 guns and the small G43, G42s because they have a different spring system. So we're going to do the first one here on the Gen 3, Gen 4 guns. And this installation process really is the same for each of the different slide stops that we sell. So again, I'm going to go ahead and go through a standard disassembly here. Again, double checking the gun, make sure it's empty, pull the trigger in a safe direction. Now wrap my hand up on top of the slide like so I can disengage the upper from the lower slightly. Okay, so now I'm taking the spring pressure off of the slide lock, the takedown lever, and I'm going to grab that on both sides and pull down and hold it down. And as I hold it down, I'll let the slide go forward, making sure that I hold on to the slide so it doesn't just fall off and crash itself onto a table, which could be very detrimental to this little nose ring right up here, because we have seen them get cracked, bent, dented, all kinds of things happen when you have this heavy piece fall down on its nose, and it basically makes the slide inoperable. So there's the upper slide. We don't need this for this demonstration. This is the lower or frame. The slide stop is right here. Now notice, if you get in here close, the spring pressure. Okay, so we want to be aware of how it operates and why it has spring pressure. So when you reinstall, it should have that same spring pressure. Now I'll show you on this magazine and with the slide off of that. I'm going to go ahead and install the magazine. You're going to notice that because the magazine's empty, it pushes the slide stop up into the lock position. So it would lock the slide back. Now, observe, if you will, what's happening. Get in here really close. You're going to see right here is part of the slide stop, that little lever, that little piece that's kind of pushed over. And it engages the magazine follower right here on this little step. But that little step is very important. So if your gun is not locking back when you shoot it on the last round, it could be something wrong with the follower, which is very rare, but it could be something wrong with the follower. Could be something wrong with this lever, or this little piece right here, this little ledge that sticks out that engages the follower, or it could be installed incorrectly. And we'll talk about that as we go through this process. Well, we can actually talk about it now. There's a spring that you're going to see. I'm going to show you to it real quick here. If we can get in here close and get some light on it. It's right back here. It's just you'll see a little dot, little light dot. And that light dot is actually the spring that curls underneath, and this is really important, underneath the locking block pin, which means that if it's not under the trigger pin, you will not have the proper spring pressure. That spring is what makes it snap back in place. When you fire the last round, the magazine follower pushes up on the slide stop and it locks the slide back, allowing you to change magazines. The slide will still be locked back, put a new magazine in, and swipe down on the slide stop to let the magazine go forward. Okay, so that's how it operates. So now let's get this kind of over here. And this is a little G43 we'll do later. And now let's show you how to take this thing apart. So the first objective is to observe what's going on in here. We've got 3 pins, which is the first one here, the locking block pin. Second one down here is the trigger pin. And the third one down here is the trigger housing pin. You can get away with this procedure just taking out the trigger pin. So we'll try that first here on this particular gun. On the Gen 5s, I think you have to take them all out. But let's see, I think we're going to be pretty good to do that. Now to take out that trigger pin, especially on new guns, it's a little stiff. Sometimes it's very tight. So you'll find that it takes a little bit of extra muscle, but there's a little technique. And the technique is to manipulate the button a little bit to be able to move the circle that the pin goes through of the slide stop, which I'll show you when we take out, back and forth, because the slide stop is captured on that pin on a small little, I guess you would call it a little ridge. There's a ridge on that pin. So let's go ahead and try this real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and take my punch. This is a standard 3/32 punch. And we're going to go ahead and kind of position it right over top of the pin. And as I do that, then I'm going to go ahead and lift up and jiggle the slide stop. And then I'm going to put my body weight on it. And hopefully it'll come out here as I started it. I can feel it. There you go. So again, it was fairly easy this time, to be honest. So now like I said, I just jiggled it a little bit back and forth. And now this piece will come right out. I don't have to take the whole gun apart. There's the piece. And that's the hole I was talking about. And if we look at here, this is the pin, this is the trigger pin. That's the ridge I was talking about. So what happens when you put this pin in, the spring pressure pushes down and captures the slide stop onto that ridge. So by manipulating it a little bit and kind of, jiggling, like I said, you jiggle it off of the ridge while you have pressure on the pin with your punch that I showed you, kind of left my chest, and it will come out. If you don't jiggle it, you can beat on that thing all day long, and sometimes it won't move. In fact, sometimes you'll bend the slide stop. So definitely use the jiggle technique. And if you get up on top of it and kind of lean down on it, it has worked for me every time. So, all right. So that's the standard slide stop. Notice the little button there, and this is going to be the extended version that we sell. And this extended version, I'll show you, has an extended nub. Everything else is the same. It really just has an extended nub that gives you a better purchase on it. And there it is. So you basically have just this extra piece here, which allows you to manipulate that without changing grips, both off and on. And that's really important. A lot of people have trouble, getting around to it and getting on that to be able to lock it back in place. With this extra nub, you can kind of just swipe it up with your thumb and swipe it off a lot easier than without the nub. So that's it. So now the installation for these Gen 3, Gen 4 guns is we're just going to drop it into the slot that is right there, and we're going to line up the hole in the slide stop with the hole in the frame. So there's a slot in there. That is right there. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop it in. Now you'll notice too that the trigger housing pin, the locking block pin is already in. That's really important for the Gen 3, Gen 4 guns because we want this spring right here to be underneath it. And that's what gives it the spring pressure. If you don't have spring pressure, more than likely, you put it in backwards in a sense. You put the trigger pin in, you put the slide stop in, you put the trigger pin in, and then you put the trigger housing pin in, and the pin ended up underneath the spring, whereas that pin's supposed to be on top, that locking block pin. And this being the trigger pin itself, not trigger housing pin, it's the locking block pin. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and now drop this into the slot, like I said, and I'm going to just line the hole up, and I'm going to push it forward, and there will be a little pressure because the spring pressure is there. Now, so once I can see that the holes are lined up, I'm going to hold it in place a little bit so it doesn't move. I'm going to put my punch in there just to kind of center it up, make sure everything's good. All right, and I'm going to grab my pin. Now I'm going to keep it, I'm looking in there, the hole looks good. I'm going to get my pin, kind of get it in there as far as I can with my hand, take my mallet with a nylon tip, and now just tap it in. Now, you'll notice on this side, it's kind of flush with the frame. And on this side, it's in the frame, there's a little bit of room left. Here's a little trick for you too, watch this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take my punch and I'm just gonna true this up a little bit, and if we pay attention, we may hear it click into place into that slot. So that hole will click into the slot as soon as I push it in. So I don't believe it's engaged yet. So if we hear it, we'll hear it click, and that's that spring pressing down on the pin. So let's see if we can do that. I'll be quiet here for a second. Nope. Didn't really hear the click, but now it's definitely in there. And it's trued up on both sides. It looks like it's supposed to be. Okay, so now we just want to check our spring pressure. We got the spring pressure we're looking for, and I've got a bigger button to manipulate. So that allows me to manipulate it easier. Let me grab one of these magazines now, and I'm going to just drop it in here. See that it actually does, in fact, engage properly with the follower, the ledge on the follower. And I can actually spring it down because it's just a spring on the follower as well. So it looks really good. So now I'm going to drop that out of there. I'm going to go ahead and take my upper and place it back onto the frame. Just line up the rails. Everything looks good. There we go. And there you go. And it's working great. So it's nice to be able to manipulate it a little easier, not having to dig in there with your thumb because I have that small little ledge out there. See it? So it just makes it a little easier to operate, both down and up, because the down is positive, right? But the up, so now I've got the same grip. I don't have to move my grip at all, and I can just sweep it up with my thumb. And that's what we like about these extended slide stops. So that's the installation on the Gen 3, Gen 4 guns. And now I'm going to go into this Gen 5 version, which is also the G43, G43X, G48. All right, so I know this is a brand new gun, right? What's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and drop the magazine. I'm going to go ahead and look inside the chamber, let the slide go, and pull the trigger in a safe direction. Now I've got a gun I can work on. Every time I pick a gun up, do the same thing. I don't care if I just dropped it down myself or just laid it down a second ago. I'm going to look inside there. every time is a really good habit. Now this is the same concept. However, you're going to notice there's only one pin here versus two. Only a trigger pin. They did that on the Gen 5 guns, and they've done it, of course, on the G43, 43X, 48. So they change up the spring system a little bit. And let's see here. I'll show you. This is the extended slide stop for the 42, 43. And I'll show you what they did to the spring. Instead of having a wire spring, they have a coil spring right here. Same concept, though. It's got a hole through which the trigger pin goes. It's got the same ledge that interacts with the follower. And of course, the extended version has an extended piece back here that makes it easier to manipulate. Just that simple. Compared to the factory, non-extended. So really, you have a choice. You know, you could say, do I want to try to play with that one, or do I want to try to play with this one? Which one's going to be easier to manipulate up and down? Of course, the extended one is. That's why we sell a ton of these. So we know the gun's empty. I've got the trigger pulled already. I'm going to go ahead and do the same disassembly using the slide lock right there. Roll my hand up just a little bit, pull back on the slide just to disengage it from the spring and the slide lock itself, and then pull down on the slide lock, keep it pulled down, walk the slide off, and there's the upper on the G43X, which is super hot right now. We sell a ton of G43Xs. Okay, now, disassembly here is a little different. And we have to take the entire trigger and locking block out as well, just so we can get access to that. So the first thing we'll do is go ahead and manipulate this trigger pin. And the way we want to do that is I can take a tool like this pen top, okay? So just something plastic or something that you can go in there, because what I want to do is I want to take the pressure off the spring that is catching it in the notch. Pin has notches just like the Gen 3 and Gen 4 guns. If I don't do that, it's very difficult to take off. So what I can do is go in and look inside here, and I can look inside and I can actually see the little spring, just like I showed you here, a little coil spring that's captured there. And I want to get my tool and I want to push down on the top of this thing, just to manipulate that hole so that I can take it off of the ridge of the trigger pin. So I'm going to just push it down. At the same time, I'm going to go ahead and get up on top of this and push it. So it's kind of like just the same concept of jiggling the slide stop. I find that I get a little better action when I'm actually on top of this thing versus just jiggling it on these Gen 4 or Gen 5, and there it is. And you'll see these slide stop move when you're in the right spot. I think that's it right there. So, and there comes the pin. That was pretty easy. Yeah, that comes out easy when you do it right. So I got lucky and did it right the first time. So now I'm going to go ahead and just take out the locking block up here. So I'll take my punch and just pry this out. And out it comes the whole way. Might as well just take it all the way out. And here is the factory slide stop versus the extended slide stop. Oops, let's do that again here. So there's the two differences. Now every one that we're about to show you is extended. This just happens to be the one that has probably the lowest profile extension. The one I like the best, actually. So that's why I'm showing it to you. But the concept is the same. The pin, or the trigger pin, has a ridge in it. That spring gets pushed down and it captures itself, so this pin doesn't walk out by itself and this slides up, it stays in the right place. It captures the pin and the pin captures it. It's pretty ingenious. By manipulating it a little bit and pushing down on it and giving pressure with my punch, I can pull it out relatively easy, as you saw. So now it's a real simple process. I'm going to go ahead and drop this in. And again, the locking block is still out. Just drop it in, put it in place, push it down a little bit so I can line it up with the trigger. There we go. There we go. So now I get my locking block, and now I have the hole in the locking block will intersect with the hole in the trigger as well as the hole in that slide stop. Okay, so all three holes are all lined up pretty good. I'm just going to hold down on my my slide stop a little bit just to push it down because the spring pressure wants to push it up a little bit. Again, I'll take my punch just to kind of true up everything. And looks good. I'm going to take my pin, place it in by hand. And I love these nylon hammers because you can beat on the frame all day long. And there it is. Let me see if I can get this to snap back in place here. There's that little click right there. So that click you heard was the slide stop catching itself in that ridge on that pin. So now it's locked in place. And I've got spring pressure and everything I need right there. So it's all good. So it looks great. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pop our upper back onto the gun. Looks good. Can do it without adjusting a grip, which is the important thing. This is a smaller gun, so it's a little easier, but that button that comes with the factory is kind of buried and it's hard to get into. Oh, however, with this extension and all the extensions we sell, it makes it so much easier just to do it with your thumb, and I'm just sweeping straight up. I'm not adjusting my grip at all, just going right up with my thumb and just locking myself under there. And then when you want to push it down, just there you are. That's what makes it special. That's why we sell so many. These two that I just demonstrated are basically right here. The extended slide stop for the G42, 43, 43X, 48. And this is the extended slide stop for your Gen 3 and Gen 4, all Glocks, basically, besides these 43, 42. And the installation, like I said, for that 43, 43X, 48 is the same as the Gen 5. Now, those two are my favorites, but we've got three or more different versions to show you, just so you can see that there's a lot of options. The biggest slide stop we sell is the Aerotech SureTouch. And we've had these for a long time. These have been around forever. In fact, they may be one of the first ones. It's big. Okay, it's available in black and silver. I've got it here on silver so you can actually see it. Look how big it is. You know, compared to the factory, it's a huge button. Somewhere I have the other factory over here. I don't know where oh, there it is. It's probably twice as big as that button. It's also raised a little bit more. So it gives you, you know, if you have a smaller hand, you know, it allows you to really manipulate it without any kind of motion on your grip. And it's a big positive piece. So we sold a ton of these. So again, available in silver or in black, it's the SureTouch. Another one I want to show you that is kind of interesting. Some people love it and some people hate it. It's the Kagwerks extended slide stop. And what they have done is they've actually reversed the position. So now it kind of goes up here to your slide. So the advantage here is you'll never really have a chance to accidentally bump it when you're shooting, which some people have done. You know, when they're shooting, if you have a weak grip on it and the gun is vibrating in your hand, there's a potential your thumb could bunch up there and actually engage the slide stop while you're shooting, and it will lock back even if you have a full magazine. So that's really just a technique that needs to be, you know, corrected. But this one is really unique. Now let's look at it for a second. I'm going to drop the magazine, double check inside, pull the trigger, and you know, it's kind of neat. It's almost a little awkward to sweep up on it, but sweeping down on it is easy. Sweeping up on it is, like I said, you almost have to readjust my grip here just to get a good spot on it because it's too far back for my thumb to really get on it. I'm missing it with the meat of my thumb. It's back here more towards the web, and I can't really get a good spot on it. I've got to bring my thumb back, kind of do it. So if I were to use this one, I would almost position my finger on it here like that, pull the slide back and do it. So yeah, it's very positive. Boom. That's easy. So that's the Kagwerks. Now, Kagwerks is also available for your Gen 5 guns. And the Gen 5 guns, as most of you probably know, but if you don't, the Gen 5 guns, one of the improvements to a Gen 5 is that they made the slide stop ambidextrous. which means it's on both sides. Now, some people hate it because it does interfere with holsters sometimes. Depends on what holster you have. Because a lot of holsters will, ride up to here, and if that slide stop is there and that holster is tight, it's going to be a tight fit or not, or a no fit, to be honest. So, there's a couple of solutions for that. One, you can just, if you're right-handed and, you want it here on the left side, just take that out, take a little Dremel, and just cut that thing off right there. Let it continue the full horseshoe, but just don't let it poke out. Still work. You just don't see it on this one side. Again, this Kagwerks is interesting. My only concern on the Kagwerks is, boy, it's awful close to the slide. And will you ever get any slide contact with the slide stop and scratching of the slide? And I don't know that to be true. So this is a Gen 5 gun. It's empty. Again, to sweep it up, a little easier on this gun, to be honest, because of the size. Sweeping down is really easy. And that's what makes this thing kind of special. It's probably the easiest one to manipulate down because it's so high, you can just, but hey, that's the beauty of the GlockStore is we carry just about everything for your Glock. And the last one I'll show you is here from Tyrant Tactical. It's just a different design. They have redesigned the button a little bit. And it's just kind of a neat thing. They've got a couple of chevrons in there. Same concept. A bigger button than the factory allows you to manipulate it up and down easier. And that's the point of the extended slide stop is, the ability to operate the tool, the handgun, the controls, extended slide stop, extended magazine button, extended slide lock, which we have available for all Glocks, really just make it a better experience because you are more comfortable and you can keep the gun pointing in a safe direction and operate all the controls. That's really important. So the extended slide stop is an item that we have sold for 10, 15 years. It is really important. I mean, it's easy to install. It's a low-cost item. It makes a big difference. And it'll give you a better experience with your Glock, which is what we're all about. I am Lenny McGill. This, of course, is the GlockStore here in Nashville. If you're ever in Nashville, come down and visit the store. It's phenomenal. People come in and say, wow. And I'm super proud of that because when I go in, I still say, wow. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you sometime soon. See you next time.